Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We'll give it just another couple of minutes just to allow more people to arrive, and then we'll kick things off properly. So please hold on tight and give us a couple of minutes. Let's just give everyone an opportunity to arrive, and then we'll start things off. Thank you so much. Okay, so once again, thank you so much and welcome. It's a pleasure to be here with you today to present and discuss what many people feel is the new kid on the block in the form of the Italian Investor Visa or Golden Visa program. But in reality, it's actually been around for quite a while, but it's only getting the attention it deserves in the more recent months. I'm Michael Maxwell. I'm one of the founders of the Ariete group, an innovative platform of Golden Visa qualifying investment products in Italy. I'm joined today by Marco Bersani, a leading Italian immigration lawyer from the beautiful city of Verona. I shall take you through our investment products, but before that happens, I'm going to hand over to Marco, who will give you sort of an insight into the program, the steps involved and the requirements, and a little bit about immigration in Italy. So thank you again. And Marco, over to you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you also to Nomad for the invitation to the webinar. I'm very happy to be here to talk about Italy and the Italian Investor Visa program, not just because I'm Italian, so I'm always proud to talk about my country, but because, as Michael said, Italy designed the Italian Investor Visa, the Golden Visa, since many years, actually since 2018. But for some reason, the program started to be was under the radar. Now it's starting to be very, very booming. I mean, the market, because people are discovering the program as another way, as a plan B to get residency in Europe, actually, and first of all, of course, in Italy. Thank you also for the presentation. Marco Bersani, founding partner of Bersani Law Office, an Italian immigration law firm with expertise on immigration in general, but our core visa is actually the Golden Visa, the Investor Visa. And so this is what we do since many years, since the beginning of the program. So today I want to briefly talk about the program. So what is the Investor Visa, or maybe somebody that never heard about it? I want also to talk about the process, the key points, the requirements. So I work with the process. So it's very important, because it's one of the key advantages of the program, the processing time also of the program. So basically, what is the Investor Visa? The Investor Visa from Italy. This is a program that is the Italian government introduced in 2018. And the Italian Investor Visa program is a residency by investment program. This is one of the first important things to highlight, because sometimes when people talk about the Investor Visa, Golden Visa, we also refer sometimes with the Investor Visa as Golden Visa. Generally, they think about a program like the citizenship by investment. The Italian Investor Visa is not a citizenship by investment program, so you don't get Italian citizenship automatically just because you make the investment, but it's a residency by investment program, which means that you can have a long-term residency in Italy for you and your family members, thanks to the fact that you can make an investment in Italy. So this type of visa is a really game changer in some ways in the market. I mean, the golden visa scenarios, because the Italian golden visa now has some really key advantage. For example, with the Italian investor visa, there is no physical requirement. So you have not to stay in the moment you get your visa, you enter the country. There is no physical requirement. So it means that you have not to physically stay here in Italy most of the time to maintain your right of residency. This is something that is really well appreciated by, of course, many investors, because most of the time they have business abroad, they have to stay abroad for other reasons. So they have not to necessarily move to Italy, or not immediately or in the short term. So it's a good thing to also think about a second residency right in Italy and, of course, in Europe. So with the investor visa, you have basically a 2 years visa. So the first time you get a visa for 2 years. And after the first renewal, so when you want to renew after the 2 years your residency permit, you can have a 3 years residency right. So the moment you if you want, of course, it's not mandatory, but if you want to renew, you will have a 3 years residency right in Italy. And anytime you can renew, it's 3 years, and so on. So the investor visa program also, beside the key advantage of the absence of the physical requirement, and they also have, the program also has a really, my opinion, a really huge advantage. You don't have to think about making the investment and then make the application and cross fingers the application will be approved. But you make the application, and only if your application is approved, then you will make, as a last step actually in the process, you will make the investment. So as you can understand, it's in some ways a so-called risk-free application, because you prepare the documentation, you prepare your application. If the application is pre-accepted by the Italian government, then the Italian consulate will release you the visa. Only after that, you can enter the country, get your resident permit, and you have 90 days to make your investment. So you don't lose. Besides, you can choose to invest the minimum or the maximum money required. There's no way to lose your investment, of course, because it's the last thing you will do into the entire process. This is also one, I think, of the key advantage of the program, because for what I know, other programs in other countries, they don't have this type of benefits. So these are, my opinion, the two key advantage of the program. And every time we talk with many clients about the investor visa, this is something that is, of course, well appreciated, because when we talk about it, the investment, we are talking about a really, good amount of money. And so people, and I completely understand, can be afraid to lose the money. So this is not the case for the Italian program. So how it works for the visa? So how can you get your investor visa, your golden visa? Well, we can say schematically, just to briefly describe the process and to be more clear on the process. Let's say that the process is divided in 3 main phases. First of all, there is a phase that we call the pre-application phase. So basically the phase where we help the client to collect all the documents. The documents, there is a very generic checklist required by the Italian government, but please note that the checklist is not the same for everybody, because it really depends on your personal situation, depending on your financial assets. So what is your financial situation for the purposes of getting the investment? So at the very end, you need to show that you have the money ready to be invested in the second time in Italy. So this is the core of the pre-application phase. So what you need to show to the Italian government. When we have all the documentation prepared, there's the phase 2, so the application phase itself. So when the application is submitted. Here also, I think it's very important to highlight the fact the application, the process actually, so the processing time is very fast. Let's say the law says that in 30 days, you can have your application. Let's say realistically in 30 days, more or less. It really depends if integration or something more must be clarified. But the process is very fast. So this is another important advantage, because if you are looking for the common situation for like a plan B. So you want to have also a step in Europe beside your home country, and you're looking for a very quick solution. Of course, you understand that from the moment we file the application and the moment you have the approval from the government, the so-called investor visa committee, the processing time is very fast. So we are talking about between 30 and 40 days. After this pre-approval, it's called nulla osta in Italian. So it's like a pre-approval. This pre-approval will be forwarded to your local Italian consulate where you live. Your local Italian consulate will setting up an appointment for you. It's a high priority appointment. The law is very specific about this. So you have a high priority appointment for getting your visa. Generally, we process many application from the US, also from Asia, from other countries. We see statistically that the consulate will set an appointment in 1-2 weeks. So as you understand, I don't know if maybe somebody had some experience with the Italian consulate. Sometimes can be a nightmare to get an appointment, but with the investor visa, we don't have this type of problem. So you have your visa, and then we have the last step, the last phase, so the post-application phase, where you enter in Italy with your visa and your passport. You enter Italy, and in 80 days, you need to request your residency card, your resident permit, so the legal document that entitles you to get your rights of residency. Here, the processing time, varies depending on the city, the local immigration offices. But let's say in 1-2 months, the application can be completely finalized. As I said at the very beginning, when you enter the country, so you have 8 days to apply for the resident permit. From the moment you enter, you have 90 days to make your investment. So as you can understand, you have plenty of time then to make your investment. In terms of investment, we are talking about making an investment, so residency by investment program. So what type of investment you can do for qualifying for the program, for the visa? There are 4 investment options on the table. The first one, the lowest one, is the chance to invest a minimum of 250,000 euros, euros, not dollars, other currencies, euros, in an Italian innovative startup. But maybe later Michael will better explain all the solutions. You can also invest in like companies that can qualify eventually to be qualified as innovative startup. Or the second investment option is to invest in an Italian company. So an Italian-based company. Italian company, we refer to an Italian tax resident company. The minimum investment is 500,000 euros. This is statistically the most chosen investment. The third investment option on the table is the investment of a minimum of 1 million euros. 1 million euros is as a philanthropic donation. Let's say you are philanthropic, so you want to make a donation. Or the maximum, so the maximum you can invest, the minimum, the fourth option you can invest is the 2 million in government bonds. So the lower you invest, some ways, but then Michael will explain you how to avoid it. More risky is the investment. The more you invest, so the 2 millions we are talking about the government bonds. So by definition, the more stable investment on the market. So these are the 4 investment options. I think that Michael can better, highlight all the options of what Ariete Capital eventually designed for allowing people to make some really successful investment.
Okay, Marco, thank you so much. I'm going to use a short presentation. And I hope you can all see that nicely. So Ariete Capital is an innovative platform of Italian golden visa qualifying product. And myself and my partner, Dario Montagnesi, we've been working on these sorts of programs since inception, pretty much. And between us have raised probably north of 300 million euros in golden visa qualifying investments, which I know for people that are here from the US in particular is a small drop in a big ocean, but in Portugal, at least, and other parts of Europe, it's quite substantial. And we picked up a lot of what golden visa investors are typically looking for and lessons learned in other jurisdictions and applied those to Italy. where we've brought to market successfully two qualifying investment options. The one is a more premium product qualifying at 500,000 euro investment, and the other an innovative startup that qualifies at 250,000 euros. Okay. Golden visa investors typically, they're not looking to shoot the lights out with us in this sort of thing. Rule number one for them is don't lose my capital. Rule number two is don't lose my golden visa. And what they really value is, capital preservation, consistency, and very much so liquidity. And we've tried to adapt those three pillars, incorporating them into the products that we're designing in Italy. And just to add to what Michael said, from my own experience, Italy is such a strong brand that it resonates strongly with international investors. We're seeing a significant increase in interest, particularly in the last 6 months. And Italy is finally, get in the spotlight when it comes to golden visa investment product, which is long deserved. I think where it stands out is indeed your processing times, which are nice and quick, and also the fact that you only invest after you're approved. Where if I had to compare that to Portugal, for example, let's invest today and then wait 2-3 years, who knows how long to get the visa. Okay, but they are different products. Each one has its pros and its cons, but we see a lot of value in Italy. And moving to our first product, which is Ariete Capital, it's our 500,000 euro option. Ariete Capital is a private audited investment company. So you get a golden visa in Italy at 500,000 euros by putting that amount into an operating Italian company that has operated for more than 1 year. And we picked up that, a couple of people that were looking at this, what they were typically doing was investing 500,000 euros into Ferrari, the listed company, which obviously is a wonderful business, but that's a lot of capital to sink into one stock, and you can only choose one company. So we thought, let's then design something that invests into the heart of the Italian economy, something that can stand the test of time and give people that diversification and liquidity that they're very, very much looking for. Okay, this is not a regulated fund. I think that's important to note. It's a private investment company. Of course, it is audited. Of course, there is transparent reporting, but it qualifies for the golden visa in that it's adding value to the Italian economy by investing into key businesses as well as key industries. We appreciated quite early on that any sort of golden visa investment is a legacy investment, and it's really cool that people are able to make an investment today that positively benefits potentially on the life of their children, but even unborn grandchildren, and that these sorts of things are transferable, especially if people make the step up to citizenship and nationality. And using that as inspiration, we thought, well, the companies that Ariete Capital is investing into need to share that vision. And Italy is full of such companies, okay? And the idea behind Ariete is to invest into these companies. They're all blue chip, they're all listed. They're companies that have stood the test of time. They've been there in the good times, they've been there in the bad times, and they're still there today doing great business. These are companies that make the backbone of the Italian economy. They're the sort of thing that creates quite a robust product, because for this investment structure to fail, it would pretty much mean the Italian economy would have failed, which probably means the European economy has failed. And then, well, then we've got a whole lot of other problems on top of that. Okay, and the markets responded fantastically well to this concept of legacy, in that as a result, the companies in the portfolio are names that people are very familiar with and really do stand out. So let's take a bit of a deeper dive into the portfolio, whose primary aim is really capital preservation. So the balance sheet of Ariete Capital is focused on two core areas. 70% will be invested into what we call the Ariete portfolio, which is made up of the blue chip listed companies and corporate bonds that were mentioned previously. When the markets are bullish, we adopt more of an equity strategy. When things are looking volatile or a little bit bearish, as they are at the moment, we pursue more of a bond strategy. Okay, and then we shift between those as things develop. in that we hold the bonds, A-listed bonds, paying a solid 3 to 4.5%, when times are a bit more tricky, being ready to catch the bounce once the storms have passed. Okay, so once again, a conservative play with capital preservation at its core. So 70% into the Ariete portfolio, and then we have a close relationship with a leading bank in Switzerland called CBH, and they're putting together a portfolio of alternative investments for us. And these alternative investments, which look more at structured products, tangible assets, mining, minerals, infrastructure, they act as a fantastic hedge to the listed equities. And we'll always keep a 10% cash position to allow for liquidity or potentially opportunistic deals and opportunities that come our way. They often say that the Italian economy is built on the four Fs, the three Fs, sorry, of fashion, food, and furniture. And a lot of these legacy companies in Italy that are listed, that have stood the test of time, you find in these areas. And what we've put together is essentially an index of the Italian index, if that makes sense. We've identified those companies that produce tangible goods that are of global need, that have the highest market cap, companies that we'll all be familiar with and that will stand out when you realize what's in the portfolio. You know, a company like Brembo, probably the leading brake producer in Europe, Campari, Piaggio, DeLonghi, Technogym. You know, these are companies that people would be proud to have in any portfolio. I'll touch on a bit of their back testing and historical performance in a little bit, but typically companies of this stature and this nature over sort of long-term 10-year investment cycles tend to come out smiling. Of course, you have dips, you have highs, but that increase is generally pretty linear. And intentionally, we've gone for this more conservative play. You know, we're not looking at speculative stocks in the tech space in Europe, where you're seeing a few peaks, but then very significant drops. You know, slow and steady wins the race, looking at solid linear growth year on year. Historically, the portfolio has performed well, particularly over the last 10 years. Clearly, we appreciate diversification and aim to consistently produce above average returns. And we're targeting probably a net annual return of around 9%. So let's call it high single digits, even though the historical performance of this index has been low double digits. You know, we're inherently conservative, and we'd be more than happy to deliver an annual net 9%. And that's quite a comfortable number to achieve looking at the last 10-year investment cycles. However, of course, backtesting does not guarantee future success. That said, we feel that our strategy of mixing bonds as well as listed equity will help us ride out any market volatility. As I said, when things are looking bearish, the portfolio will be more bond heavy, allowing us to ride out the storms and catch the bounce when those storms pass. Okay, but 12% annual return, which is the projected number when you look at the back testing, of course, would be a wonderful achievement. We'd be more than happy with high single digits. We're very privileged to have a close association with CBH Bank. They're a financial institution of the highest quality, possibly the top-rated Swiss bank at the moment. They've been around for many decades. They look after a significant sum of wealth and money, and their track record speaks for itself. And as I said, they are putting together a mix of alternative investments for us, looking at structured products, looking at precious metals and commodities or things in infrastructure. Typically, these do offer a hedge to equity volatility, but also it gives us a nice diversification outside of Italy as well. So the full picture would look something like this. We're targeting a five-year ROI of around 50%, okay, which is a very solid number, especially if you look at this as an investment companies and bonds that most people would want in their portfolios anyway, but it comes with a whole layer of benefits in the form of the Italian golden visa. So it's not a sunk cost. It is an investment. The shares in the company are yours. We're targeting annual dividends as well. And with it, you get access to the Italian dream. Unlimited time in Italy, access to public facilities, particularly healthcare is really interesting, as well as for those who have to apply for Schengen visas and know the stresses and pressures of doing that consistently. You'd have a permanent Schengen visa at the same time. So put those two things together, and it really is indeed a very attractive proposition. And while we've designed and put together quite a simple, efficient structure, that doesn't mean it's not robust, and it's still governance heavy. So everything is audited by a Big Four auditor. Intesa Sanpaolo is the depository bank, which is up with the top banks in Italy. Investors get access to audited accounts annually, and all decision making is taken upon the input of shareholders in the company. So this is going to be quite a small structure. We'll be growing it to around 7-8 million euros, at which point we'll convert it into a regulated SICAV. That should happen in the very near future. And now moving on to something quite different. Okay, Ariete Capital has brought out now Ariete Tech Solutions. And this is our innovative startup option that qualifies for a golden visa at 250,000 euros. It's an official approved startup. And of course, people hear innovation, tech, startup in the same sentence. They think high risk, high reward, and ordinarily they'd be right. We've had a bit of a clever play that's allowed us to get around a lot of those risks. And we've put together something that is pretty interesting, in that downside risk you'd associate with a startup is largely protected. And we did that by launching the startup with pre-approved and registered intellectual property. Okay. And why is that important? It's important because that means of the capital we're bringing in, we only have to put about 15 to 20% into R&D. The rest could really go into anything. Okay, so we've putting 15 to 20% into R&D, developing some innovation, which I'll elaborate on in a second. And then say 80% of the portfolio is then into something far more predictable, which I'll also touch on. The innovation we're developing is an AI tool for alternative, tangible, collectible assets. Okay, and we're doing this because things like classic cars, art, watches, baseball cards, horses, you name it. You're talking about a trillion-dollar industry, but it's an industry where your pricing models are quite opaque. There's a lot of sort of pie in the sky emotion feeling around the values that are attached to things. And they're quite old-fashioned. With an AI tool that can evaluate, give a projection on, as well as transform into a marketplace matching buyers and sellers and put together fractional ownership structures, it's something that's really ready to disrupt a well-established market. Besides the pricing, your middleman brokers on a lot of these assets, their commissions are extensive. We've seen numbers of 10% or more. And we're able then to really design something that's far more efficient, that can leave a mark and actually add a lot of value. And so far, the interest has been strong. And that's innovation component. And of course, it's important that we respect that. After all, we are an innovative business, and that's what gives us this golden visa perk that we're a beneficiary of. So 15 to 20% of the capital will go towards developing that AI tool, starting off with collectible, tangible assets, then stepping into things like prop tech as well. But how we de-risk it is the rest of the portfolio is then made up of three core things. We will put about 15 to 20% into A-listed corporate bonds, slow, steady, predictable, paying say 3.5 to 4.5% a year. And then we'll be putting allocations into real estate investment trusts with strong cash flow, paying out say 7 to 9% a year, as well as regulated mining and resources and technology funds. Okay, so from your very conservative corporate bond to your more punchy tech fund, we're designing a structure We're taking an input from leading advisors, including CBH, on what would the ideal mix is going to be, but something that consistently can pay out a 9%, because we're well aware that the 20% we're putting into R&D and tech potentially could be the most valuable part of the business. I mean, we could sell that for 10x in the future. You never know. But at the same time, it could amount to nothing. So what we've effectively put together is something where the 80% that then goes into more traditional investments is enough to cater for a worst case scenario. So if the AI tool we're developing amounts to nothing, over a 5-year investment cycle, we filled that hole. And after year 5, we're paying out a steady fee to investors every year, which I'm sure that appreciates. So something quite low risk in a high risk environment. The perk is that it also gets you an Italian golden visa and the Italian dream for 250,000 euros. And that's really the value proposition. You're getting access to tech innovation, corporate bonds from leading Italian companies, regulated funds, as well as real estate investment trusts. So things that give you a nice mix of capital growth as well as consistent cash flow, so that we're able to pay out a dividend annually as well. It's important to note that as an innovative startup, for the first 5 years, we're legally not allowed to pay out any profits. Everything has to get reinvested. Okay, but from year 5, we're anticipating quite a handsome profit to be paid out annually. And I think that's enough talking from me. We've got a bit of time left for some questions. We appreciate that for some of you, it's the end of a long day, or for others, it's the middle of a very busy day. So I'm going to open the floor to any questions if there are any. And if they're not, happy to bid you farewell and all the best for the rest of your day. Mark, if you could.
Yes, grazie a tutti. That's about all my Italian for today. I'm just curious about, obviously, I'm understanding that you've already basically pre-approved these investment opportunities, Michael, so there's not the need to make sure they pass muster with the Italian government. But my question is, if let's say we were to use the $500,000 path and we invest $500,000, obviously the returns we hope will be 9% annually, but they could also decline. What happens if the investment value goes below 500,000 within the 2 years or 3 years that the visa is actually good for?
Yeah, so that wouldn't impact on your golden visa. You can't hold investors subject to the ransom of the markets, really. So you've done what's expected of you. You've made the investment that's expected of you. Obviously, we're doing everything we can to, play it down the middle, conservative play, as I said, adopting a bond strategy at tricky times, flipping to equities when things are looking better. It's a good question, but it's not a concern from a golden visa point of view.
But when you renew, you might have to if it continues to decline, you might have to renew your investment at the level of which it was required. I mean, obviously, we would hope that wouldn't happen, but I'm assuming that every time you renew, you have to make sure you have at least 500,000 invested.
From my point of view, I don't believe that's an issue, but I believe Marco could elaborate.
If I correctly understand the question, so what you're saying, you need to show the minimum, so the market value is still the same. So 500,000. This is the question, correct?
Right. Basically, if I invest 500,000, I get the 2-year visa. At the end of 2 years, if there's less than 500,000 in value in the portfolio, then I'm assuming I have to increase my investment to bring it back up to 500 to get the 3-year visa after that. No.
Correct. No, that's a good question, but no, you are not to show that the value of the market value is still the same. You need to show when you make the renewal. So after the 2 years, after 3 years, so anytime you want to renew, you just need to show they are still invested in the same stocks or funds or whatever you were invested the first time. This is not important, the market value, because the market value can fluctuate. So they want to see they are still invested, so the investment is untouched.
Okay. And can I ask you another question, Marco? Is this number 250 or 500,000, is this for an individual or a couple? My wife and I would both want to apply for a visa, and I think I've read somewhere that it's for a couple, but obviously you would know and I don't.
No. If you want to make the investment, so let's say the typical case of family members, so you and your wife. Okay.
Mhm.
So you can be the main investor, so the one that make the investment. For your wife has the right to come in Italy as spouse, so she has the right to come with a family visa, and so a family resident permit linked to you, because basically you are sponsoring your wife to legally stay in the country. So there is no need to make two investor visa. So there is no need. I mean, you can, but it doesn't make sense. It really depends, because the main difference is that when you have the family visa, with the family visa, it's a normal visa. As a normal visa, you don't have the same advantage of the no physical presence. So for your wife, if your wife applies for the family visa, your wife is subject to the same rules to stay in the country most of the time. So not for you as an investor.
Right.
Definitely, if you want to, if you have, of course, the enough money to do that, to make two investor visa, you will also give your wife the chance to avoid the physical presence for the first years.
So she would need her own investment visa to be able to come and go as she pleased.
She'd need her
No,
own
the
investment
spouse, no.
visa, but not her own investment. She'd attach to your investment.
I see. So she would need to apply for an investor visa, but not make the investment.
Correct.
She has a family visa. She's your spouse. As a spouse, as a close family member, so she has the right to stay with you in Italy, long term, of course, with a right of residency with a family visa. It's called family
Okay.
visa.
So one of us would have an investor visa, the other would have a family visa.
Correct.
And is the
Correct.
family visa application as quick a turnaround time as likely to happen as the investor visa is?
Yes, yes. There are different ways to proceed, actually, alternative way. She can come together with you, or it can apply in Italy. There's a specific procedure for the family reunification. I mean, it really depends on your goal, actually. There are several ways to do that for spouse and minor children. So
Right.
eventually, this is something that we can talk about.
Okay, yeah, and I don't want to monopolize the time. So if other people have
No, don't
questions,
worry.
by all means, I always have questions. So if no one else has
No
questions, I
problem.
can ask more. But why don't you go to somebody else?
Okay, so thanks for that, Mark, and absolutely, we've got time for more questions, but I can see William would like to say something. But before that, Marco Uzlem asked, until which age would children be considered dependent? And what would you need to show to prove dependency after that cutoff age?
Yeah. So for children, I mean, under the investor visa, they consider as close family members the spouse and minor children. In Italy, minor age is up to 18 years old. So up to that age, the child is considered a minor, and so technically as a dependent. If we go with a child that is over 18, things are a little different. For over 18 children, so technically they are considered adults. They cannot come together with a family visa together with the main applicants to the investor. They need or a separate visa, can be also the investor visa, of course, or any other type of visa, student visa, or whatever, depending on your goal. They can come together with the investor only. There is only one exception. Only if the adult child is dependent, financially dependent. So you need to show that your child is completely financially dependent by you. And you need to show that the child is completely dependent by you because of from a healthcare position as a total disability. So only in that circumstance, the adult child can be considered completely dependent as it's a minor, basically. Except for this, the adult children cannot join together with investors.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Marco. I'm going to, William, I'm going to open up your mic. Please feel free to ask your question.
So I appreciate this seminar very much. Thank you. Marco, you said something earlier and it wasn't clear to me. So my situation is my wife, myself, and two children that are 17 right now. So after we get it done, let's say before they're 18. But then at the end of 2 years, if they're going to school and they're financially dependent, I'm assuming that they can still qualify under the family. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yes. In that specific case, let's make an example. They will enter with you because they are still minors when the time you enter. So they will get the family visa together with you and your spouse. During the stay in Italy, let's say they will be enrolled university to school or whatever, they can always convert the resident permit they have as family status into a student visa, student resident permit, or another work, another permit, another resident permit. You can always convert. The main problem is entering the country. So what type of visa can suit for your situation? When you are in the country, you have your resident permit, can be for family reason, can be for studying reason, whatever. You can always convert your status if your status change. So generally, when you have a child that enter as a minor and then become an adult, they will require you to make a conversion technically. So you need to convert the resident permit. Let's say that the child is enrolled to school, so you can get a resident permit for study reason.
But if the child is going to school outside of Italy and they're not there ever, they're just,
So
let's say
William,
they're going in Great Britain or the US or whatever, they can still have the visa.
So my
visa.
understanding, I might be wrong, Michael, as the immigration lawyer, was that as long as they're qualifying minors at time of application and approval, they can then keep on renewing their golden visa as well.
And yes, yes, correct. It's a situation that must be evaluated case by case, to be honest. It's a really particular situation.
And so for the family visa, is there a residency requirement, or can the person, we're looking for a plan B for the resident, for the family visa, do they have a different residency requirement than the primary applicant?
No.
No, the family visa holders are linked to the investors. They are linked to the investors.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
There are a few Q&As that have come in. Someone is asking about what would happen if the startup went bankrupt. Obviously, everything is done and the way things are structured that wouldn't happen. I've had conflicting legal views on this in Italy. A couple of the lawyers we've spoken to have said it's not the investor's fault. They've done what's expected of them and their visa would get renewed. Other lawyers have said, well, they might have to then find an alternative startup. Okay, so it's a little bit of a gray area at the moment. Marco, I don't know if you'd like to elaborate on that particular question regarding the startup visa. That's at least the feedback I've had from a couple of people. But obviously, especially the way we've structured things, that's quite unlikely to occur.
Sure. Yes, from the immigration perspective, I mean, when you make the renewal, the regulation says you need to show to the authorities, to the immigration office, that you are still invested. So the investment is untouched. So if for some reason you invest in a startup and the startup go to bankruptcy, they fail, so it's closed. So you lost your investment. So, I mean, technically you cannot renew because you cannot show that you're still invested. Also, if it's not your fault, of course. That's why it's important to, since the beginning, to make a really good, due diligence on what type of investment you want to do. This is a really, is a good question. Actually, it's a common question because sometimes clients ask to us, what do you think is the best investment? There are not really a best investment. It's up to you. You need to make your due diligence or where you want to invest. And of course, if you invest in a government bond, there are, let's say, a risk almost zero that there is a bankruptcy, but the amount that you need to invest is way more higher. So I think maybe with Ariete, there are some diversified solution, but maybe something that you can talk privately with Michael.
William, you've posted a question. Sorry, Uslem, I'll add in that a university student, I think you're familiar with working with Portugal, where dependency can go up to 25, so long as you can show financial dependency on parents. In Italy, it's really up to the age of 18. You got to get your applications in and approved. There's not that flexibility after 18 that you typically see in Portugal. William, you've asked on the 500,000 euro investment. For us, we have a one-off subscription fee. Okay, that's a onboarding fee of 3%, which we use for a couple of things. We use it to get an independent lawyer to run a will check, source of funds, source of wealth on all investors coming in, just to make sure we're not bringing any bad apples into the baskets. I mean, that wouldn't be good for anyone. And then because we don't charge an annual management fee on the structure, we take a bit of a fee upfront because it's more of a buy and hold strategy. We're not doing annual speculative trading. We're buying well, we're buying at a good price, and we're holding those good positions. So we didn't feel it would be right to charge an annual management fee on the structure. So we get an onboarding fee up front, and thereafter remunerated purely on performance, 20% of profits above a 5% preferred return to investors. Elaine, I'm going to give you a chance to talk. Hi, Elaine, you're muted if you'd like to talk. Elaine Harris?
Hi, sorry about that.
No
Hi,
problem.
can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh, great. I know with the Portugal Golden Visa and some of the other Golden Visas, an adult child with a spouse can bring their children as well as their parents. Is that the case with this? Especially if the parents are doing some caregiving?
Yes, for adopted children, there are no problems because adopted children are legally considered the same as biological children, so that's not a problem. For
Oh,
parents,
no, not adopted children, adult children who have their own family.
Sorry.
Can they bring their parents? Sorry, it wasn't clear.
Sure. There are also the possibility to bring parents, but there are also here some really strict regulation from the Italian side. You can also bring for example, your parents, old parents, only if parents are older than 65 years old, and those parents cannot be assisted by others in the country, so they have to come to you to be assisted for healthcare conditions. So everything is basically linked to a health condition, so a severe health condition that you need to provide, to prove, with documented medical documentation.
Or a lack of support in your home country. So your parents are at a stage
Correct.
of their life where you couldn't leave them back home in the US on their own because you're their primary caregiver. You'd have to take them with you to Italy.
Correct. The legal
What
principle
if it was?
you need to show, you need to prove to the Italian government they are strictly linked to you, completely dependent by you, and also for the fact they're the severe health condition.
And there's no way the other way if the parent, the grandparents are providing childcare for the adult applicant
You need to
kids.
show the severe healthcare condition that's very specific by the law. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, let me pass things over to Mark again. I'm not sure if you have any further questions.
Oh, I do actually, because I didn't think I heard correctly. You said something in the stage 3 of the visa application, you have to come to the country. Is it 80 days, did you say? So after you get approved in that second stage with the consulate appointment, then it's 80 days after you have to come to Italy?
Yeah, so basically there are a couple of situations where you need to come in Italy, to physically come in Italy. First of all, what is important generally is to open the Italian bank account since the beginning. So what we advise is to open the Italian bank account.
I already have one.
Okay, fantastic. So you can avoid that stuff because generally Italian banks now, European bank in general, they require for due diligence for all the companies to come in person to be identified. So this is generally the first time you need to come in the country. Of course, it's something that you can deal in one day. The second time you need to come in Italy is when you enter with the visa, and here you need to be physically present for the first time application of the resident permit because they will take your fingerprints. You need to bring your application documents. Generally, those are the two moments where you need to be present in Italy. You don't need to spend the time later. For example, when you are waiting for the resident permit to be processed in 1 month, 2 months, you don't be necessary to be present in the country.
Right. So, again, I don't want to waste everybody else's time. Our circumstances are a little bit different in the sense that we already own a home in Italy. We own an apartment in Turin, and we would like to, we're not planning to move permanently to Italy, but we'd like to stay in Italy a couple of months, multiple times a year. Now we're living on the Schengen rules, which is actually okay, but we'd like more flexibility to be able to come and go as we please. So we're not necessarily looking to become Italian citizens or permanent residents, though who knows. We're looking just to have the flexibility of coming when we want to and not having to count the 90 days in 180. So it seems as if the investment visa actually might even be a better option than the extended residency visa, because the extended residency visa seems as if it is earmarked for people who are planning to permanently move to the country.
Yeah,
Is
in
that
your
correct?
specific case, yes, correct. In your specific case, it seems that investor visa is for sure the best option. What I
Right.
recommend is eventually to contact us so we can have eventually a face-to-face conversation just to
Right.
better understand your needs.
All right. Grazie.
And
Prego.
Mark, you're in our hometown, so next time.
Yeah, I thought you must be, because I thought that was at Victor Emanuele pictures in your presentation.
We ride on Piazza San Carlo, number 107. Next time you're in town, please knock on our door and grab a coffee.
Will do. All right.
Okay.
I see another question here. Government fees. So what are the government fees like? Well, the government fees actually are pretty low. I mean, we are talking about more or less, that's ballpark calculation, more or less than 200 euros. With government fees, we need to consider the consular fees. When you apply for the visa, you need to pay the consular fees. As today, the government fees for consular services are 116 euros. Then you need to pay when you enter the country, you need to pay the government fees for the resident permit, the issuance of the resident permit, and it's more or less 80 euros. So let's say ballpark, you can pay for only government fees to 200 euros.
Yeah, which is a fraction compared to what people are looking at in Portugal. Marco, in Portugal, you're looking at very significant government fees for a family of 4 over the 5-year period into the tens of thousands of euros.
Sure, yeah. Then you need to, of course, to buy your flight ticket coming here. So if you want to consider, but it's not a government fee, of course, as another form of expense. I see other questions coming.
So there are no delays in processing at the moment in Italy. We've had people get their pre-approval within 30 days. I'd say you're looking at an average of 60 to 90 days. So it's really nice and quick. Any delays have really come from the client side. It hasn't come from the actual authorities. Things like also opening up bank accounts or whatever takes a little bit of time. The speed is definitely something that I appreciate in Italy after many years working in Portugal.
Sure, absolutely.
Marco, would you like to answer Thomas's question regarding permanent residency? From my understanding, you're on a 10-year journey to the passport. The second set of 5 years, it's 183 days a year. In the first 5 years to permanent residency, Marco, I've got a few different answers, depending on lawyers I've spoken to, that if people want to make the step up to permanent residency, from what I've been told, is you need to visit twice a year and that you can't be outside of Italy for any 6-month full period. Ideally, you should rent a property in Italy during that time as well, which could be a studio in some random town that doesn't cost a lot. And ideally, in year 5, file taxes in Italy. Marco, I don't know if you've got a different opinion.
Yeah, that's correct. For sure, when you want to apply for permanent residency or Italian citizenship, of course, you need to show that you have a degree of integration in the country, of course, before you want to apply for permanent residency or citizenship. So the law requires you, beside all, to fill up the tax declaration and so on, you need to show that you physically stay in the country for at least 6 months consecutively, or in the 5 years for the permanent residency, you have to stay in the country for a minimum of 10 months in the 5 years. This is for the qualification of the permanent residency. So here, this is very important since the beginning. So every time we talk with all the clients, it's always important since the beginning, if possible, to understand what is the final goal. Because if you're just looking for a plan B to get your resident permit in Italy, just to have a plan B just in case for geopolitical reason, whatever, you need to come in Italy, but you don't want at the very end to get Italian citizenship or permanent residency, you don't need to accomplish all these things. You just need to continue renewing your resident permit every 2 years, 3 years. Differently, if you want to aim to Italian citizenship by naturalization, so by residency, or to permanent residency, then things are different because, for example, if you want to apply for permanent residency, if beside fill up your tax return for the 5 years, you need to maintain a minimum physical requirement in Italy. You need to take a language test. You need to pass a A2 level of knowledge of the Italian language. So there are some additional steps you need to show that you have a minimum integration in the country.
Yeah,
So for
if I
permanent
had to
residency,
give people sort of the image of our typical client, our typical investor, they tend to be close to retirement, baby boomers that are looking for optionality, a plan B, and something that gives them access to free, solid public healthcare and unlimited European time, that they can spend a lot more time in Europe than your standard Schengen visa. I'd say that's our sort of most common clients that are really looking for a European passport as a plan B, not through relocating. Possibly Italy is not the ideal solution for them. They tend to look at something more like Portugal. But for those that are looking for optionality, something quick, something in the heart of Europe, G7 economy, Italy works really, really well. David has posted a question here regarding tax implications on the investment. So David, both of these companies are Italian companies. They pay Italian tax. They pay corporate tax. There can be withholding tax on profits paid out, but obviously you apply double taxation treaties and things like that. A lot of the investments, though, do end up being tax-free in that there's a participation exemption. So if you hold the investments for more than a year and then you sell them, you're exempt of capital gains. Back home, obviously, depending on where people are tax residents, there are different tax implications. Investors that are based in Hong Kong or Singapore, for example, that I speak to with a territorial taxation system, it's irrelevant to them. People that pay tax on worldwide income or pay tax on nationality, this would then, any income or profits would be declared in your local tax returns. Uslem, regarding inheritance tax in Italy, I don't believe there is inheritance tax, Michael, but I may be wrong. There's no wealth tax or donations tax. What about inheritance?
There's an inheritance tax, but I'm not the most qualified person for talking about taxes, to be honest. Yes, but there is.
Like Portugal, it's more of a stamp duty than a
yes.
a 30%
Yes, there is.
inheritance tax that you see.
There is, yes.
Yeah. Mark, if you've got one more question, feel free. Anyone else, put your hand up if you'd like to chat.
I see another question.
Sure. No. Okay. Two quick questions. When you go to the consulate for your appointment, me for an investment visa, my spouse for the family visa, do they hold your passport? And if so, for how long?
Yes, they will hold your passport, but generally, it really depends consulate by consulate, to be honest. In my experience, I don't know where are you from, but in my experience, in most countries, okay, in the US, there is no problem. In New York, I saw generally 1 week for keeping your passport.
No offense to the consulate there, but they think they've rounded up the most unfriendly, unhelpful Italians to work at the consulate because it was really an interestingly different experience there than I've ever experienced in Italy. But
given the fact, as I said before, I mean, they wanted to design, the Italian government design the investor visa as a really fast track application, also from the consular side. By the law, this is very specific by the regulation. You have a high priority appointment. So as long as they receive, generally is something that your immigration attorney will keep. I mean, we will contact the consul, they will organize everything. But as soon as they will receive your pre-approval, they have to, if they have, like, let's say a line of 100 people waiting for a visa appointment, you are the first one to be called.
Ho capito. Also, how do we contact you? Because you're saying I should contact you, but are you going to share email addresses later, or?
So I've
you can
put
contact
my email address into the chat.
Okay. The chat was disabled, so I couldn't. Or they mean the Q&A?
The Q&A. Sorry, I mean the Q&A. But it's mm@arietecapital.com. Michael, if you'd like to share yours, and
sure,
we'd be very glad to arrange a Zoom call with whoever's interested.
Okay. Again, thank you very much, gentlemen.
You're welcome.
Our pleasure. Everyone, thank you again so much for attending. We really appreciate it, and all the feedback and all the questions as well. So have a fantastic rest of the day, and look forward to welcoming some of you in Italy at some stage. Take care, everyone. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.